Tucker Carlson,
the voluntary human extinction movement, wants to eliminate the human race from the planet.
Is a conservative social commentator in the United States. He used to be on Fox News, and I believe his show was maybe the most watched TV show in America at one point. Anyway, he now seems to do a lot of stuff on X, formerly Twitter, and he recently did an episode of Ask Tucker where he answered a question that I wanted to give some commentary on.
If I achieve just one thing in life, what should it be? Now, it tells you a lot about modern America that that's even a question. No person, certainly no man, in the previous, say, 15,000 years would have asked, what should I achieve in life? There's really only one objective in life, and that's reproduction.
So there's a few things I want to say on this. The first one is that the idea that the only objective in life is reproduction is just absurd. Sure, many people, most people in fact, have children, but the idea that this is the only objective for them in their life is almost kind of insulting. So very quickly, before I go into that more, there are a significant minority of people that simply don't have that as an objective in their life, or it may be an objective, but it ranks a lot lower down on their list of priorities. But going back to people where it is a high priority to reproduce, they may have other competing priorities and things they want to achieve in life. Today and throughout history, people have strived for what their culture designates as honorable. They want to get close to a god that they believe in. They want to make the world a better place. There are so many things people have as objectives in their lives. There's not just one objective, which is to continue your genetic lineage. The second thing I want to say is, why did he just so unnecessarily gender this? He specifically brought up men when it really depends on the culture as to which sex gets more pro-natalist messaging towards them. Now, don't get me wrong. I think probably all cultures in existence today will have very pro-natalist messaging towards both sexes, but it can be the case in cultures that one of the sexes, the messaging they receive is much more focused on the idea of their reproduction. And in the West, where his audience is, it's arguably women that get more of this messaging, or reproduction is more strongly associated with being a woman. So I'm not sure why he would so unnecessarily aim this towards men.
Pass on your genes so you don't become extinct.
So, okay, the first thing to say is genes were only discovered recently. So the idea that people have had this idea to propagate their genes going back in history is ridiculous. People didn't even know genes existed. Secondly, what does he mean by extinction here? Extinction's usually used to refer to the fact that an entire species is no longer in existence rather than specific individuals within it. If an individual person doesn't have a child, that has nothing to do with the extinction of their species. All of the rest of the species could continue procreating. It's just that that individual genetic lineage has ended, bar them having siblings to carry it on. So he must be using extinction to mean something very specific here, like an individual genetic lineage finishing. But who says that should be the benchmark as to how we judge someone's continuation in something other than themselves? Because this is obviously what he's getting at. When he says continue your genes, I think he probably knows that people back in the day didn't know what genes were. He just means having a form of yourself that continues beyond your death. But we all leave a mark anyway, regardless of whether we have children or not. He's the one that's just completely unnecessarily restricting that to a biological form of continuation. But why does it just have to be biological? Why can't it be intellectual or some other form of legacy? Different to Tucker, I wouldn't say to pass on your genes. I'd say to pass on a better situation to the people who will come into existence, regardless of your actions, or the people who are in existence now, a better one than you came into. After all, if you're interested in a legacy, who do we remember? We don't remember the people who had kids. We remember the people, or the people we positively remember, are the ones who made an impact in the world and improved the world for others. I also want to question that passing on your genes is an inherently good act. What if your genes contain something that is going to manifest in a horrible way in the person you create? Is it still a good thing? Now, I don't think Tucker or many people who would agree with him in general would say that is a good thing. So they obviously recognize that there are other competing considerations rather than just passing on your genes, and that passing on your genes isn't inherently good. And the final thing I want to say here is, regardless of whether you like it or not, we are all going to die. We're all going to go extinct, if you want to use that term. Whether you have children or not, you are going to die, and that's going to be the end of it for you.
They're called, in our culture anyway, children. And then one hopes they mate and have grandchildren, and that makes you the patriarch of a clan.
So again, he's unnecessarily gendering it here. I don't know why patriarch and why not matriarch, or why gender it at all. I'm not really sure. But obviously he's trying to appeal to this masculine sense of competency and influence here. But if you want to be the leader of a group, is it more competent and impressive to rise to the top of a clan out of competency or demonstrating virtuous behavior, or not to bother with that, but to create a whole new clan with people who have a genetic likeness to you and are put in a position where they are predisposed to like you and form an attachment to you? So when you create a clan like that, you're already rigging the game in your favor that you're going to win out. Does that really demonstrate virtue and competence? If you want to be all manly and patriarchal, isn't it better to get to the top out of competency and virtue rather than creating a whole new game that is already rigged in your favor? But also, if you want to create someone so that you can be like the leader of them and the leader of a clan, isn't this just such an egotistical, self-serving reason to create someone? I mean, it's not even that you've convinced yourself that you're benefiting them. It's simply all about you.
And gives meaning to your life. So in other words, you could spend your entire life working for Deutsche Bank, which is obviously pointless and destructive of the social order, and you probably wouldn't feel good about that. But if you had a bunch of kids, you would still win because you're passing on your genes. You're fulfilling your core destiny, which is to reproduce.
So here Tucker is confusing an individual's destiny, if there is such a thing, with the evolutionary process. So yes, we exist as a result of evolution, which produced sentient beings in the form of Homo sapiens, as well as all the other forms of life. That's why we exist as a practical matter. But that doesn't tell us anything about what we should do now that we're conscious agents. Are we predisposed evolutionarily to want to have sex, which will lead to reproduction? Yes, for obvious reasons. Does that mean that we have to, or we should reproduce? No. Why should an individual determine their future by what would be advantageous to the continuation of a strand of DNA?
Let me put it another way. Next time you read about someone who's got like 27 arrests and he's been arrested for some horrible crime, and he's a complete ne'er-do-well, if not menace to society, George Floyd, for example, find out how many kids that person has. So you're reading the paper or some website and you're judging this guy. He's never had a job. He's got 27 drug arrests and he finally shot someone. Damn those Soros prosecutors. And I agree with you 100%. But push a little more deeply into his background and I'd be willing to bet my late model car that he's got more kids than you. So who's really ahead? You or George Floyd? You or the guy with 27 drug arrests? The guy with 27 drug arrests, if he's got more kids than you, he wins. Because in the end, that's how we tally the race, by reproduction. So get to it. Have some pups.
Tucker doesn't seem to simply be describing the way things are. He seems to be wholeheartedly endorsing this and encouraging people to go down the path of measuring individual success by how many kids you have. This seems to me like such a bizarre yardstick to use. By that yardstick, Genghis Khan, who had children into the thousands, should be our idol. He is the patriarch of a really big clan after all. But I'm not actually convinced that Tucker would endorse this if he thought about it enough. Clearly there are other measures in life that we should be judging our individual success by, like demonstrating virtuous behavior or helping others in need, overcoming hardship. This can all be done without creating a new person, and actually in many cases creating a person actually works against these things. Anyway, that was just a quick one to respond to Tucker Carlson's thoughts on this question. Tejas actually also made a video on this topic. I'll link it in the description. He makes some separate points replying to Tucker, so go and check that out. Let me know what you thought of what Tucker said, my thoughts on what he said, and I will see you in the next one.
I will say that is the sickest thing I think I've ever heard, but you were one of the cheeriest guests we've ever had.